Hi everyone, Brian Estrada here. Welcome to our second interview in our Startup Pueblo series, where we interview local entrepreneurs and have them share some of the things and steps that they've gone through to get established. Today we have Nathan Stern with Fuel and Iron, and everybody's heard about Fuel and Iron. The rumblings are happening. So we're going to talk about his great program that he has with this new business that he's starting. Not only is it a new business, it's an education facility. It's also an apprenticeship facility. Eventually it will be a local farm, and I believe they're going to have daycare eventually as well. So we're going to let Nathan tell us a little bit more. Welcome, Nathan. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. It's great to be doing this.
We're excited about the program because it's been going on for a while now as we get the progress. It was great that you brought that building back to life. We just went on a tour with the economic development group that was down from all over the state. Made some significant progress there. So can you tell us a little bit about Fuel and Iron? What is it going to be?
Absolutely. We're really trying with the Fuel and Iron project to be an incubation space for culinary entrepreneurs of a number of different sorts. So the first phase of our project, as you mentioned, is the renovation of the Holmes Hardware building right at the intersection of Union Avenue and B Street across from Union Depot. And we're renovating the building on the first floor and the basement into the Fuel and Iron Food Hall. That'll be an incubator for 6 independent restaurateurs, 5 full restaurants, and then Solar Roast Coffee and Nick's Dairy Cream doing the coffee and ice cream. And then we're going to run a central bar within the facility, and it's all going to be common seating. And then on the second and third floor, we have 28 workforce housing units. The idea being that we want people who work downtown to be able to afford to live downtown. So hopefully locking in the affordability of those units will preserve that long term. And then we have a 2-acre site surrounding the historic building. So we have a phase 2 and a phase 3 of our project. Phase 2, we're looking to open Fuel Farm, which is about an acre urban farm, largely raised fields with a greenhouse and aquaponics system. We're also going to have an event space in another historic building that's just south of the main building. And then we'll have a performing arts space under the Union Avenue Bridge. And then we have a half acre to the east of the Main Street Bridge in our phase 3, which we want to do some additional workforce housing in collaboration with IndieDwell. And then we have one site, well 2 sites that are not on our downtown campus. We've also master leased a cold and dry storage warehouse on the east side of Pueblo at 1745 North Erie Avenue. And we're looking to build an incubator commissary kitchen in that building. That'll be an incubator space for packaged products entrepreneurs, but it could also work with food trucks, caterers, farmers market, vendors, people who have a big event that they need to prepare for on a one-off basis. It'll be a kitchen with a variety of different equipment and big walk-in coolers, freezers, dry storage space that should work for a wide variety of entrepreneurs there. And then I should also mention within Fuel Farm, that'll also be an incubator space for the next generation of farmers, both those who want to open urban farms, but also those who want to do more traditional agriculture. We'll have an apprenticeship program, as you mentioned, for all 3 of those spaces that will help those next generation of entrepreneurs get some initial training before they go off into the world. And the last thing we're doing, as you also alluded to, we're opening a child care center. That'll be in the RMSCR Empowerment Center at 330 Lake Avenue. We got a grant through the Department of Human Services at the state to open employer-sponsored childcare, so primarily geared towards the kids of employees at the food hall, but we also expect to have a good bit of excess capacity to be a community childcare center as well.
Wow, this project has gotten even bigger than what I was aware when I came in learning more about it. So now you are going to have an entertainment space. It's also the incubator, the child care, a farm, and we're going to relive not relive, but actually make it happen. The commissary kitchen, huh? That's excellent.
Yeah, one thing we started realizing as we started building out the food hall, because we started with the historic building. We were lucky enough when we purchased the historic building, it came with 2 acres of land. Right. And so we started thinking, what would be the best uses? What could we do that would support the food hall, but also add another element into downtown Pueblo and also into the food ecosystem? And Pueblo is so blessed to have such incredible farmland directly to the east of town, right, and so many incredible farmers and entrepreneurs. And just like with restaurants, where Pueblo has a bunch of amazing restaurants, but it's really hard to start a new farm. It's really hard to open a new restaurant. And so we thought with the urban farm, that would be just a great use, a great feel for downtown, really to be a public gathering space that people could interact with, really in the same way they would a public park, sun up to sundown. The farm will be just a really pleasant place to walk through. We'll have a playground, we'll have benches, we'll have trellises. It's just, we hope it'll really enliven the campus and be a place where people feel comfortable spending a significant amount of time. And then also it can be the bedrock for an agriculture program, a working urban farm that can help through an apprenticeship program train the next generation of farmers within Pueblo County and make it a little bit more approachable for them to be able to then open and start farming either within the city or within the county, depending on what type of agriculture they're interested in. And hopefully bring the community more engaged in the agriculture process, just because even though it's close, driving out into the county sometimes can feel formidable. Right. So having a working farm in the center of downtown to be an educational space for agriculture, hopefully that will get youth and just people in the community of all types more interested in agriculture, which then hopefully will lead to more people wanting to become farmers.
That's great. One thing I've always admired about you is that you always want to encompass the community, and so if you all didn't hear, we've got something going on at Rocky Mountain Sayre, we've got something happening on the east side, and then we're right in downtown. And tell us a little bit more about the incubator concept, okay? Because everybody hears the word incubator, but everybody has different styles of their incubators. So how long are they able to stay in your building, and then what happens after that through that process?
Yeah, great question. So with the food hall, that is more finite because each entrepreneur within the food hall actually has their own kitchen. So we could fit up to 6 entrepreneurs, and we're fortunate enough that we have all of our spaces leased out, and we're just so excited about the chefs that we have in our opening crop who are going to be launching this concept into the world. We wanted to stagger their lease terms because we didn't want everybody to be leaving at once. But the goal is that all of them will leave and open their own restaurant space within Pueblo. So our shortest lease term is 1.5 years. Our longest lease term is 3 years. Hopefully it'll settle somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 years after we work through our initial crop of chefs and we start bringing new chefs into the food hall. And so that should lead to one chef leaving about every 6 months to open their restaurant. And what that will hopefully do is make the experience continually fresh and exciting for the consumer because they're able to always try, a new chef, a new concept. Of course, there's an endless number of cuisines in the world. So even though we have a big variety with 5 of them, it's just a drop in the bucket of the whole potential of the cuisines we can service out of the kitchen. And then also it'll be a great way for these entrepreneurs while they're in the food hall, they can build their brand, they can test their menu, they can build their core team. They can put some money in the bank. They can develop an operating history that when they go for an SBA loan will be a lot more attractive to an SBA lender. And hopefully they can put money in the bank for the equity piece of that loan. And just in a lot of different ways, make it easier for them to open their first restaurant and then leave and give that opportunity to the next chef who wants to open their own place.
That's awesome. It's a great concept. It gives them the chance to build a history that works with the lenders, things like that. You had mentioned something when you said it's all community seating, just so people understand what it is. You're going to have a main bar in there that your portion runs, and then each has their kitchen. So it's just like, for lack of a better term, so everybody knows what it is, similar to a food court, correct?
Exactly. That's a great way to think of it. The big differences between a mall food court and a food hall, number one, independent chefs, more design focused, central bar, but otherwise it's the same idea where you can go, everyone can get the food from whatever counter they want to, you can get your drinks from the bar, and then it's all common seating. So if you come with a group, everyone can get their food and drinks, all congregate together. So it's just great variety. You don't have to, figure out, okay, what's everybody's dietary restrictions and can we go here or here, because there's going to be something at the food hall for everybody that's really high quality that everyone would be happy with. So we hope that it'll just be your default. Hey, let's just go to the food hall. Everyone can get what they want. Everyone leaves happy, and you don't have to coordinate it and line it up at the beginning of the night.
Yeah, because then everybody can eat what they want to eat. That's great. I was able to make it to 2 of the pop-ups. because I had other scheduling things. I wanted to go to all of them, but I made it to 2, and the 2 that I did sample, it was excellent food. It was quite a variety. My staff went to the other ones and said the same thing. So before I get on to my other list of the questions here, what made you get involved in like a whole education piece? Where did you come up with this idea? Well, tell us about you, how you got this thought process.
It's really been an iterative process. We've kind of evolved and built the project over time with the scope and what we want to accomplish. But ultimately, we kept hearing about there being a brain drain from Pueblo, where people will feel like there aren't enough opportunities in the community, and that in order to launch and advance their careers, they would need to move to bigger markets. And our goal is to prove that's not the case, that if you want a hospitality career within Pueblo County, you can stay within Pueblo and you can have a really rewarding, meaningful career, and there will be opportunities for growth all throughout the way. And education is just a really vital component of that. And in starting to work with the community college, that's how we really got more knowledgeable about the apprenticeship model of learning. Mo Montgomery, who's now our culinary and education director, she was working on building an apprenticeship program within the community college. And then when the community college decided to discontinue their culinary arts program, we thought, well, let's not lose that momentum. We can build that together. And we had applied for a grant with the community college called the Sync Up Colorado Challenge, and that's where we really fleshed out this idea of an apprenticeship model. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of an apprenticeship is you're paid the whole time. So what we had heard, was a lot of graduates of the community college in the culinary arts program, they were there for 2-3 years. They had, some student loans that had accumulated and that they had a hard time paying off once they graduated. So the beauty of apprenticeship is you're working and earning an income while you're in school, and so hopefully you're graduating debt-free, and then you have all of this practical on-the-job experience and all of these relationships that you built. Even, I think even more important than the hard skills are just the soft skills and the relationships that you can then apply that and really take that into the workforce and have a much easier job finding a meaningful place of employment. And one thing that we got a grant from the state through a group called Generation Schools Network to build our own apprenticeship program for culinary. And what we think we can offer that groups like the Colorado Restaurant Association or the American Culinary Federation haven't developed yet is a multi-employer apprenticeship program that works well in a space like a food hall. So within our first year program, we anticipate each apprentice will get about 1,000 hours of on-the-job learning. And instead of being in one place for that whole time, they'll be doing a rotation between the 6 chefs at the food hall, the bar, and then the front of house food hall management. So it's essentially awesome. 8 employers instead of 1. So you're learning different cooking techniques, you're meeting different people, everyone has a different style, and you can really hone in on what you want to do in the food and beverage industry, I think, a little better, just having all of these different experiences instead of just being at one place. Right. And so hopefully down the road, we can grow the apprenticeship program by doing some placements with an employer for a longer period of time, but the apprentice can do that with the knowledge that they've seen a bunch of different options and this is the one that they want to pursue. So hopefully if we can do that at the farm, we can do that at the food hall, we can do that at the commissary kitchen, we can really provide these initial multi-employer platforms for the apprentices to learn and just have an accelerator to hone in on what they really want to do for their career. And hopefully that'll lead to greater satisfaction for them, that once they get into it, it'll be what they really want to do and they'll enjoy it more, stay in longer, and just be more successful in the long run.
Yep. All right, that's a lot of information. So I'm going to bring it back to this one other thing, because you did say about you wanted to give opportunities to Pueblo, which was great. But one of the questions that I had from hearing people was, what drew you to Pueblo? How did you even figure about this building? Because I know that you have an operation in Denver, but what drew you here?
My first job out of college was with Colorado Winds, the state employees union.
Okay.
And their office is about a block away from the Holmes Hardware building.
Okay.
And the first time I came to Union Avenue to that office for training, I was just hooked on Pueblo right away.
All right.
The architecture, the people, the culture, the history, the 5 sensory experience of seeing chilies roasting. I just really love everything about this community. And so when we started looking for a site to do a food hall, we looked all up and down the Front Range, and we even looked at some neighborhoods in Denver and some suburbs in the Denver metro area. And we didn't want to force the project into the wrong building because, it's a pretty capital intensive project, and we didn't want to do it in a site we weren't fully confident in. But then when we found the Holmes Hardware building, it met all of the criteria we had set out before we started our search. And you just can't recreate a building like that, just the incredible character that it has, and then the location downtown and the land around it. It just checked all the boxes. And the fact that we can do this in downtown Pueblo on Union Avenue, which is my favorite main street in the world, it just means a lot. And we really hope we can do the community proud, because it's such an exceptional community and it really deserves top quality projects.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that as one. Everyone knows that I'm a fan of Pueblo, and I always say, talk about, excuse me, all the good things that we have. We don't always get that press, so thank you for seeing that and wanting that. I also saw that you have a site at the State Fairgrounds now as well, and then you also have a Fuel and Iron bar in Denver that specializes in like Pueblo cuisine. How is that going in Denver?
It's been a really interesting journey. So we've rebranded our bar in Denver as Honor Farm, and now it has a haunted Pueblo theme. We have a tiki bar in our mezzanine called Hell or High Water, which is a haunted pirate tiki bar. And at first we were separate businesses, so we had Fuel and Iron bar on the ground floor. Hell or High Water was operated by a couple of our clients on the mezzanine, and we decided to merge with them and have a more universal theme in the building, because our initial themes were not exactly, the customer bases that they were both attracting were fairly different, and we weren't getting the overlap that we were hoping for at the beginning. And the other challenge was we were starting to get a lot of brand confusion, where people said, all right, Fuel and Iron, is it a bar? No, wait, is it a food hall? Is it in Denver? Is it in Pueblo? Just we were hoping using that brand for both would create better name recognition. And I think it did that to an extent, but it also created brand confusion. And we wanted to make sure that people knew that the food hall would be in downtown Pueblo and really build awareness for Fuel and Iron in downtown Pueblo. So, hopefully we struck a good balance between keeping our Pueblo theme and also showcasing a different element of Pueblo, because we think Pueblo is the most haunted city within Colorado, and Honor Farm is the most haunted place within Pueblo with the greatest lore. So hopefully we can showcase a different side of Pueblo that will add to the story we're already telling with Fuel and Iron.
Awesome. That is definitely a good way to get people in, because that's the trend now. Everybody's always asking about that. So I know that you had a really unique way to open this building, and you had a really unique journey. Can you share some of that? Because your building is set up so differently. Like the bottom is going to be a business, and then the other is residence. And you really did some work to get these, the ability to rent these apartments at a lower cost than what the market rate was. So tell us a little bit about your journey just to get Fuel and Iron to the point where it's almost ready to open.
Well, I think an important piece of context is we put the building under contract March 3rd, 2020. And then 2 weeks later, every restaurant in Colorado was shut down.
Right.
And during the pandemic, nobody knew what was going to happen to the food and beverage industry, and funding food and beverage projects wasn't really in vogue from conventional funders. So I think when we set out to fund the project, we were hoping to have one funder on the debt side to be able to fund the entire thing. And then, we're using historic tax credits on the equity side as our big equity source. So we were thinking, 2 or 3 funders, this is going to be great. We'll get it wrapped up and we'll move forward. And, fast forward 2 years later, and now I think we're at 17 funders for the project, because it was just impossible to find that one big funder who was willing to take a risk on 2 first-time developers launching a food and beverage project during a pandemic. And, one of the reasons why we're so excited to be doing the food hall here is because Pueblo doesn't have a food hall yet. But from a lender's perspective, there wasn't an existing food hall we could point to and say, look at the sales that food hall is doing, and if we do a similar amount of sales, then we'll be successful, because we're really launching the first one in the market. So we really had to cobble the funding together. We have banks, we have CDFIs. We're using a type of funding called CPACE, which promotes energy efficiency in commercial buildings and is treated kind of like property tax. We have federal and state historic tax credits. We have PRIs from 3 different foundations. We have an equipment lender. We got ARPA funds from the city. We got funds from both the home funds for affordable housing from the city. Our big lender on the housing side is the state of Colorado, the Colorado Division of Housing.
Yep.
So it's just a wide variety. And in order to make that all work, we had to create two separate condos. So we have a residential condo and a commercial condo. So essentially two totally separate capital stacks within the same project. And we just had such an incredible group of funders that some of them saved us multiple times throughout the project. And they had to, I think 17 people of any sort trying to work together is never easy.
Exactly.
So they all had to work with each other with very different requirements and parameters. And so it did take a lot longer for us to close on our financing than I think a typical project would. It took us about 5 months. But to everybody's credit, everybody stuck with it. We worked through the problems and we were able to close. And I think we're going to have a stronger project for it because we have such a breadth of funders and stakeholders within the project. I think that's going to lead to a better project overall.
Yep. Well, exciting. You don't even think when you get started where you have to go for each of these things. So you guys did a lot of work on there. So tell everyone who's watching, what do you wish you knew before you got started?
Sometimes I think being naive is a helpful thing.
Okay.
The project has been so much more challenging than we thought it could have possibly been going into it. One thing we tried to do at the very beginning on the funding side is we were trying to use 3 different types of tax credits: historic preservation tax credits, new market tax credits, and low-income housing tax credits. And I think I could have saved a lot of brain damage if I realized how hard it would be to close with one type of tax credits and the requirements there, and trying to do all 3 would have just been impossible when we got to a closing. And so luckily we got that feedback fairly early on from funders that they kind of saw what was coming based on their experience. But if I would have known about the complexity and would have just focused on the historic tax credits and not the new market or low-income housing tax credits from the beginning, I think we could have made the fundraising and closing process a little bit easier. So definitely wish I would have understood that. You just have to weigh the pros and the cons, because I think if we knew a pandemic was coming in October of 2019 when we started looking at the building, we would have just said, let's just wait. Let's just see. Let's just see how it goes. Or if we knew how challenging it would have been to put the funding together, we may have just said, oh, you know what? I mean, let's just wait until maybe we have more resources personally, or food and beverage projects are more in vogue before we launch the project. So I think in a lot of ways, the things that we didn't know, in some ways, if we knew what we knew now, we could have saved a lot of time, but in other ways we might not have done the project altogether. So I think sometimes jumping in and being a little bit over your head, there's a lot of risk to that, but also you might pursue things that otherwise you wouldn't have, and if you just kind of keep pushing at it, eventually we've been able to find a way. So in a lot of ways, I'm glad for the things that we didn't know.
Good. It's a good learning experience, and you'll know it for the next time. So just off the topic, so after you open, are you worried about inflation and the cost of goods? Are your restaurateurs getting concerned? Because we're told that it's really going to have an impact after the first of the year. Does that scare you at all?
What we've and we being my partner Zach and I, before we started a development project, we worked as commercial real estate brokers representing restaurants, and Zach still runs that line of our business today. And for as long as we've been working with restaurants, there's always been an existential threat to the restaurant industry. For a while it was rents, and then property taxes,
right,
or the availability of contractors and construction costs, and now it's inflation. And all of these things are really concerning, and they're really tough on restaurants. But what we found is that restaurateurs are so creative and so resilient that they've found a way through all of these other crises that have put before them. And we always heard, as we were working with restaurants as brokers, it's a bubble, there are too many openings, the bubble's going to burst. There are some dire predictions at the beginning of COVID, 50, 70% of restaurants are going to go out of business. And if you go back and look at the numbers, there were a few more closures than normal during COVID, but it wasn't as catastrophic as people thought it would be going in. And that was a global pandemic. And that just, I cannot say enough about, number one, the chefs we have in our food hall just being an incredibly creative, resilient, amazing group, and just independent restaurateurs in general. They just find a way to overcome whatever's in front of them. So inflation's going to be tough. It's going to wreak havoc. It's not to say that it's going to be a walk in the park, but I'm just so confident in our group of chefs and just in the restaurant industry in general to be able to find ways to overcome the challenges in front of them that I think we'll find a way.
That's really great that you have that relationship and that confidence, because you are right. You have to be creative when you are a small business owner, and especially a restaurateur, because people's tastes change. So what advice can you give to future entrepreneurs about opening a business?
I would say, think about what you can do that you can be better at or see an opportunity where other people don't see it. We really became believers in a food hall model, and we thought if we could find a building that other people couldn't figure out what to do with, but would be perfect for a food hall, we could find a property and put it to use. That's an amazing property that other people might not have wanted to or been able to program. And I think we were right on that with the building that we were able to find. And if we didn't have the market knowledge of a food hall and what spatially a food hall would need or how it would operate, we would have missed that opportunity. So, I think start with what do you know better than other people? Where can you find opportunities that other people would miss? And then, just perseverance and persistence. We, weren't the best capitalized, definitely not the smartest people out there. And there was just so many times throughout the process where we just wanted to quit, thought that this was it. We had a setback and like, there's no way we can overcome this. And, the normal way that I process that is, kind of get despondent for the first, 24 hours. And,
right.
Just kind of, like, oh, all right, this is the end. But then the wheels start turning, and eventually, we've been able to come up with solutions. And that's honestly for us, it's been by necessity because we had to find a way. Everything was riding on us finding a way. Throwing in the towel just wasn't an option. But I think there are all these hurdles, and if you just keep going and keep thinking and strategizing and talking with people and trying to find solutions, eventually you will find a way forward. And I think the persistence we've had more than anything else, has allowed us to get to this point. And I know that, the hurdles we face in front of us are, whatever they are, they're also going to be significant. Right. And so it's just kind of like working that muscle to have a little bit of greater confidence now than we did before that we will be able to find a solution. And hopefully that'll continue to be true when we face whatever, 10, 20, 100 challenges are right in front of us.
You got it, because the challenges are just beginning now. You made it through the one hump, and now once it opens, it's going to happen. But perseverance, I really like that word because that's what I tell a lot of our clients as well. You're going to have this, but you got to persevere and you got to keep going at it. So now that you've been through this journey, what resources do you recommend entrepreneurs here in Pueblo use?
One thing that makes Pueblo so exceptional is that the community is so connected and everyone wants to help up and coming entrepreneurs. And we couldn't have done the project without the resources in the Pueblo community. SBDC has been incredible. Skill has been amazing. Pueblo Food Project has been unbelievable. So I think the SBDC and Skill are great places to start. And I think one thing that you all do so well is helping the entrepreneurs identify other community resources, because we just had so many people who have been willing to take the time to meet with us, to advise us, to connect us, from the banks to the foundation community.
Awesome.
And just starting with resources like SBDC that kind of understands the big picture and can connect entrepreneurs with other resources. I think that's really valuable.
It warms my heart that he says that, as that we're all connected and we work together, because that's one of the goals that community leaders are really trying to do here is we need to work together to help push Pueblo forward.
Yeah, and sorry, if I can just add one specific example there. One of the things that we really struggled with was finding our federal historic tax credit investor. And we called all the established funds and all of the kind of usual suspects, and we could not find anyone who was willing to buy our federal historic tax credits. And that was about 10% of our overall project, and a really critical 10%. And so we got introduced to the bank who ended up buying the credits from SCED. And
Yep.
they're a community bank in Southwest Colorado called First Southwest Bank. They had never bought federal credits before, but they were just really invested in community development and just very entrepreneurial and creative, and got connected to them, and they ultimately bought the credits. And without that, one of the many ways the project would have totally fallen apart. So that's not necessarily the job description of SCED to make those type of connections, but because they did that, we were able to keep the project going.
Great,
So
great.
it's just linking up with the groups who have those connections and networks and know the resources out there is just really important.
Right. And for those of you watching, SCED is Southern Colorado Economic Development District. Yes, we have a lot of acronyms. I just want to make sure you know that is available here in Pueblo as well. All right, one of the things that my staff really wanted me to make sure I asked was, how would a potential employer, or employee, not employer, excuse me, find job opportunities with Fuel and Iron?
So we will have a job page on our website. Right now we're just posting for our higher level roles. Or let me say, we do have a job posting on our website. Right now we're just posting for our GM and our bar manager. But we will have just a general job portal where people will be able to apply for positions on the website. It's a little bit more cumbersome, but the one challenge in the food hall is that each of the concepts are their own independent
Right.
business. And so each of them are going to be creating their own website and advertising for job postings individually. So that will make it a little bit more challenging for the applicant, but we will have a portal on our website where you can apply, and then we'll disseminate the job
Okay.
postings to the individual chefs. But if there's one particular concept that you're interested in specifically, I would recommend to an applicant that they just search out that concept specifically
Okay.
and connect with the chef and figure out how they're doing their hiring process.
All right. For the consumers who are getting ready, because I believe you're going to hopefully open in December. Is that what we're-
Hopefully construction complete in December, opening in January.
Oh, say opening in January. So how would a consumer find out like what restaurants are in there? Is there a website that they can go to?
We have a website now. We're working on, we have kind of like a web brochure. Now we're working on our permanent website that'll list all of the restaurateurs. We're still probably a few weeks away from that, but
Okay.
if you go to our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram, for Fuel and Iron Food Hall or Fuel and Iron Pueblo, we've been, we had this series of pop-ups
Right.
during the spring where we revealed and shared information about all of our chefs. So if you go back through our history, you can learn about all of our chefs. And then one thing that we're going to have is on December 15th, we're going to have our first holiday party event. Holiday feast is what we're calling it. And so we'll be featuring food from all of our different chefs at that event. And then we did also that on a rotating basis for the state fair. So we do want to have events throughout the year before we open where we're showcasing
Okay.
the chefs, but to go back and learn about each of them. For now, probably the best way to do that is check out our social media and go back through when we made our chef announcements to be able to learn about who each of them are and the type of food they're going to be offering.
So follow them on social media. You can find that information out before their website is available. What is the tagline for social media?
It's at Fuel and Iron Pueblo.
Okay. So that way you can look at that if you didn't make any of those pop-ups. For the December 15th event, is there going to be a registration? Is it just going to be open to everyone? How is that going to work?
There's going to be a registration
Okay.
through Eventbrite. It's going to be a ticketed event.
All right.
We'll have a link on our website. I would love to get a link out for you all to share with
Yep.
your community.
We'll
And,
gladly share it.
Yeah, I think we'll
Mhm.
try to, of
Yep.
course, share that as far and wide as we can.
Yep. There'll more than likely be a small fee, correct?
There will be a fee.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
But it'll be a wonderful event. You'll be able to sample different cuisines from all of the chefs. Like I said, the pop-up series was excellent. All right, before we wrap up here, is there anything else you would like to share with the people that are going to see this video?
Just a thank you to the community again. We just couldn't be more fortunate to be opening this project in Pueblo. I've been really lucky personally to have met a number of unbelievable Puebloans. If I haven't met you yet, I would love to meet you. So just an open call. We'd love to if we haven't already, we'd love to get to know you at one of our events. We'll be doing the Parade of Lights in November. So, just a lot of gratitude and excitement to be working on our project in Pueblo, and hope to, make everybody, from a stranger to an acquaintance to a friend very soon.
Awesome. I just admire your involvement in the community. You've really got yourself in there. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. Everyone, remember, you can find more about this through our website and through their social media, and look for that website. Our office will, as soon as we know that the website is live, we will push that out through our newsletter as well. All right, that way you can connect with them. But look for that event on December 15th. I cannot recommend enough that you should go so you can see the differences. That way you're prepared when it opens. But Nathan, thank you for taking the time with us. We appreciate
Thank you, Brian.
it.
Really appreciate
And
it.
everyone, we'll see you the next time. All right, take care.